Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Makbool with you on PTV World, and today we're going to be taking a look at what is happening with reference to the developing situation in the region, and of course the statements coming in from Pakistan, with the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif mentioning very recently at a trilateral summit between Pakistan, Turkey and Azerbaijan that Pakistan is willing to engage in dialogue if of course India also is contributing to this dialogue with sincerity, and of course to talk about all of the issues including Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and the issue of terrorism. And this is particularly important in the wake of course, the recent Indian aggression and Pakistan's befitting response on the matter after the baseless allegations and accusations against Pakistan without any evidence with reference to the Belgaum attack. This is, of course, also important in terms of the ways that Pakistan is putting forward its own stance in the region and internationally as well, moving ahead with evidence and credibility and talking about how Indian state-sponsored terrorism and involvement with terror links in the region have continued to exist. And so what is the possibility of moving forward with true dialogue or even trade relations, as the Prime Minister mentioned, is only if the other party also meets the table with sincerity. And that, of course, remains to be seen. We also saw that the Turkish Premier also extends his support with reference to the participation and mediation that can be offered by Turkey in this regard. Whether or not that, of course, will actually be something that can result in dialogue between India and Pakistan, of course, remains to be seen, and if anybody else in the international community would step up for that regard. Of course, the ceasefire still exists, but in terms of the way that the core issues at the heart of the matter need to be addressed still remain. That is going to be our focus in the first segment. Our next one is going to take a look at what is happening, of course, in Gaza as the genocide continues. We've also seen that Pakistan, of course, has been condemning this and has been asking for justice in Gaza. Now, we also saw that our permanent representative to the United Nations has spoken once again for the UN to immediately intervene and stop the genocide in Gaza. That, of course, is also a lingering issue that remains with, of course, food and aid being cut off for the people in Gaza and many at the brink of starvation. That is very, very, of course, important in terms of the response of the international community and Pakistan's own perspective of the matter. So we're going to take a look at that and what essentially the UN can possibly do. For this and more, as always in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Tafi, and we've been joined online by former ambassador Dr. Jameel Khan. Thank you very much, Dr. Jameel, for joining us and being a part of the show. And I'm going to start with you with reference to what we've seen, of course, happen very recently between India and Pakistan. While the ceasefire is welcome and while Pakistan has always put forward its stance of not moving ahead as a preferred stance with any sort of conflict or war, and has also talked about peace and dialogue, it is something very, very essential for any sovereign country to respond to any aggression over its territory, and that, of course, baseless. And that Pakistan has done. But again, the stance that the Prime Minister is reiterating is once again of peace, and saying that if there is dialogue that is sincerely approached by India, it is something that is welcomed by Pakistan. Do you think that's a possibility?
Is it a question directed to me, Sana?
Go ahead. Yes, Dr. Jameel, I'm asking you.
All right. Okay. But in fact, I lost you for a while. But anyways, yes, this tour, if you're talking about, and also the very instance which Pakistan has, and the Prime Minister of Pakistan, which he has taken in these interactions with Azerbaijan and Turkey, Iran as well. And we are maintaining that, that we are open to the dialogue, and we have been saying that we like to have peace, but if aggression is directed to us, we will have to respond. We'll have no choice. That's what we did it in past, and that's why Prime Minister is mentioning now. In fact, even if you go to the history, we've been always welcoming that, and we still remember those 4-point agenda of President Musharraf and the dialogue, India-Pakistan dialogue, though it has always been very complex, and historically it has been complex because the conflict and different narrative, but then CBM is so much needed between the two countries to really have their confidence building measures, and that's what Pakistan is indicating. to them, with, of course, with the condition that if India keeps threatening Pakistan, that's going to be the violation of the international law, threatening a sovereign country, like Modi. I don't know. Unlike a statesman that he says that either the bread or the bullet. So that we have never heard in any national conversation or by the head of government or by the head of the state. But that's what it is. But still, I think it's a very good point for the diplomacy that the world should know that Pakistan would not like to do the aggression. But if the threat like the one which Modi is giving in his public speeches in Rajasthan and other places, then in that case, of course, then once the aggression style is made by India, Pakistan would have all the rights to really respond to it. For the first time, as we've been discussing, the role of the third country, and that was in this case US. Although Iran has played its bit, and Saudi Arabia, UAE, all of those countries have really played their role. But the most vehement role which has been played is by Trump and his administration. So and India is still trying and struggling to sell its narrative, which is becoming very hard, even with the help of Shashi Kapoor, who is a good orator. But how can he convince the world of those narrative, or how can he really um, uh, convey those narratives and convince people of what India is, trying to do about the terrorism and about the involvement and about the linkage and any future happening in India. The India would take it as a declaration of war. So all this posturing, the world should know, and the world should know what kind of international relation we are relying upon, what kind of foreign policy we have, and that's what the Prime Minister has really spelled out. If you go back into the history, General Musharraf's time, 2001, notable steps were taken. And those 4-point Kashmir, which was the management and the limitation and emphasis in the public speeches, which were made at that time. So all those things, if we have in our mind, then the Prime Minister has done the conversion of all those points and presented it to those three countries, more importantly, two countries, Azerbaijan and Turkey, and even today in Tajikistan, he has mentioned and he has dropped that hint about Kashmir. So if we they go into the details of it, then the regional sovereignty and the stability can only be attained if the two nuclear neighbors they come to some terms. But it appears that during Modi administration, during Modi's in power, it's becoming very hard. And I'm glad that the world has started realizing that what the extremist view the Modi administration has and Modi himself has. And once the world realizes that, then the recent clashes which India and Pakistan had, that would also further be taken seriously, and the world would then go and find the very resolutions which have been passed in relation to the Kashmir and the treaty, the Indus Water Treaty, about which we have already, through our National Security Committee, through our different statements, policy statements of the country, Pakistan has really made it very clear that if you deprive of water illegally and under in deviation of all the international law, then Pakistan would definitely take it as a declaration of war. So that is where we stand. And under these circumstances, the world is watching very closely. Prime Minister, this visit of 5 countries, that becomes more important because the 3 countries which he has visited, Iran, Azerbaijan, and Turkey, fine enough, that was at the bilateral level. The messaging of during those interactions have really gone loud and clear to the world. But more importantly, this multilateral forum, multilateral engagement, which Prime Minister is currently present with in Tajikistan, where we have the so many delegations of the world about the preservation of the glacier preservation summit. That by itself has its really very significant importance because the world is really quite concerned about the climate change. But these are the platforms where we are able to really interact with the world leaders, A, and then the world delegations, B, and C, that we are able to convey in person. In fact, this summit could have been attended virtually also. But Prime Minister chose to really go there along with his team. And the main purpose is that outreach program. One is Bilawal would be leading, and Bilawal would be doing his best efforts to really let the world know about what all we've been discussing and what is the flashpoint here in this part of the world, and how the world can be affected, and how India is really pitching itself in front of how they are trying to really propel their narrative against Pakistan. So that he will do that, but at the level of Prime Minister, at this multilateral engagement, where he raised the issue of Kashmir, he has mentioned about that, and some of those things that for which the forum was where the summit was convened, this CASA 1000, which is about $1.2 billion project, which definitely connects the South Central Asia and the South Asian, the electric transmission and trade agreement of this 1.2 billion, as I said, and mentioned about CPEX. And then more importantly, we have our historical relations with Tajikistan. And now that we have enhanced our outreach to these countries, we understand that there is so much of scope of our bilateral relation in terms of transforming and translating those bilateral relations into the trade and commerce and bilateral relations, tourism. So from that standpoint, I guess Prime Minister, this visit becomes quite significant in the
Yeah,
context.
and it is quite important in the ways that we're going to proceed further with this. And Farooq, I want your take on this too, because we know that Turkey has offered mediation in this regard as well. And we of course saw previously also other countries playing an active role between the situation between India and Pakistan, with of course the US being primarily active in terms of the ceasefire in particular. But in terms of actually engaging and looking at the core issues and having India and Pakistan at the table talk about the occupied valley, talk about terrorism in India, India's involvement in it, can countries like Turkey or others truly help in bringing the sincerity that is required for this negotiation to be considered properly?
Thank you very much, Sana. I think that the current state of mind that India is in, I don't think that they will be heavily relying on countries like Turkey or, for that matter, China or Azerbaijan, because they are directly blaming, the intelligence here are blaming them for siding with Pakistan, right? Yeah. Although the entire world sided with Pakistan in a way that they did not condone India's misadventure against Pakistan, but even then, these are the three countries that they have identified, and they are not going to actually focus on that. And I'm going to tell you what India is trying to do regarding these countries in a bit. Okay. But before that, I just wanted to reiterate a couple of things. One, while we keep on referring to whatever happened during those fateful 4 days between India and Pakistan as skirmishes or stuff that is anything but war, I think it was a war. Why was it a war? Because India's intentions were very clear. And while India tries to actually play it down because it got brown-nosed out of the whole episode, but also because it tries to actually claim that it wants to expose Pakistan's nuclear bluff, right? And that wasn't the case. India itself was ready to abandon its no first use policy during this. That is exactly what actually brought Washington back into the discussion. Otherwise, perhaps they would have stayed aloof. But with that, I think that it will be prudent to call it a war. Regarding the possibility of dialogue, Sanad, look at what Prime Minister is saying. He is actually identifying two topics, right? One is Kashmir, the other one is terrorism. On the other side, what did not Donald Trump, but what did Narendra Modi say in his first speech after the whole Sindoor episode, right? He said that we are only going to talk about terrorism and we are only going to talk about Pakistan, or they call Azad Jammu and Kashmir, POK. So we are going to talk about POK. Whether you actually discuss the tail or the body, you are discussing the same animal, right? So Kashmir is Kashmir. The point is that he also indicated in a way readiness to talk. But then there is a problem of the mentality that India exhibits. At this moment, everyone is mourning. Remember that they are after President Donald Trump just because he keeps on saying that he mediated ceasefire. And I don't understand what is this mentality, because in the end, it was something that might have helped save India's face, because otherwise anything could have happened, right? Surely India's rulers also love their citizens whenever there is war. And in this war, look at how deep both sides went. So it is clearly a war. Narendra Modi has indicated, but in the past, if you remember, during the first term of President Trump, he actually came out on record and said that Narendra Modi spoke to me privately asking me to mediate on Kashmir. When that happened, of course, India had to, deny and obfuscate, but that is something that happened. Throughout that term, and remember that there was an army chief in Pakistan for 6 years who actually thought that no matter what, we should be holding dialogue and we should be finding some kind of solution with India. And during that time, repeatedly it happened that one after another Prime Minister came on record and said, let us have peace. And India, why don't you start peace? And similarly, that army chief himself also came on record because he was really fond of his own image and his voice. So he came on record and he repeatedly said that also, but India did not budge. So am I to believe that whatever agreements they have offered or whatever conditionalities or readiness they have indicated to the West or any other country, are they going to actually walk the talk? I don't think they are in the state of mind to do that. Look at how India's elite is actually behaving regarding the ceasefire. Why is it important? Because their attitude is still reflective of whatever was being said, reported by the media, and that was the time when the mask slips and their bigotry actually starts showing. Everybody was cheering the prospect of Pakistan being run over by India, and that's why they are so angry with the ceasefire, because they thought that Narendra Modi has actually snatched, defeat from jaws of victory. But they are sane voices also, and let me actually tell you why that worries me. Praveen Swani is one of brilliant analyst, and he has been very separated from the entire stock. All those shamans, all those penny analysts who were sitting on their channels, those people were on one side, and this guy was very independently analyzing, of course, from India's side and in India's favor, but he was very objective. But now he has also started saying that Pakistan is rebuilding. Of course, India is also, but Pakistan is rebuilding, and within 6 to 12 months, Pakistan may start a war with India. Now, why does it worry me? Because he is a very objective man, On the other side, perhaps he does not understand the zeitgeist that is in Pakistan. Pakistan has gone through hell in 22, 23 years of war and terror. And now, viscerally, every Pakistani wants peace. Of course, it has to be not at the cost of the national self-image, right, and self-respect. But regardless of that, in the end, Pakistan does not believe in initiating any war. Now, especially in the past 25 years, when we have actually paid, the price of our follies with our blood. So India seems to be misperceiving where Pakistan is at this moment. We want to rebuild our economy, we want to rebuild lives, and we want to be good neighbors. But India's mentality is such that it does not seem to be doing the same. And it has launched, luckily, because there were so many countries which disappointed India. That's why India has not been able to single them out. But Turkey, they have started using all their entrenched power in the West to attack these countries. All of a sudden, Foreign Affairs magazine, a journal, actually comes up with an article against President Erdogan, right? Similarly, last time when India was very angry with President Trump regarding tariffs, at that time, all of a sudden, bond market started actually crashing. And why do we know that there were Indian fingerprints? Because immediately, President Trump did two things. He suspended three things actually. Suspended the tariffs first on India and then the entire world. But then Tahavvur Rana was immediately handed over to Indians. And the third thing was they jacked up the tariffs on China. So that is clearly a demand of Indians that all these things happen. This time also, once again, bond market is being messed up, and all of a sudden we see that once again the focus has shifted from India to China. So Indians are carrying out what I call the second strike on America and President Trump, only because President Trump actually wanted to take some credit for whatever he did. Unfortunately, India cannot even digest that. With that kind of mentality, do you think we can talk?
Ambassador Saab, I want to take on this too, because while we, of course, have this stance put forward, there's also a lot of evidence that Pakistan is giving to the international community and the world capitals of Indians' involvement. And with what Farokh has described, it's important, of course, to understand the possibilities then that exist of this actually happening. And so while we, of course, prefer that, and while we are open to that dialogue, it is also a fact that Pakistan is paying the cost for this as well, in terms of the terrorist activities that are being sponsored, in terms of what is going on in the occupied valley, and of course the bilateral tension that exists every couple of years. And I want your take in terms of then the options that Pakistan has if there is no dialogue.
No, the option of what Pakistan has, they've already initiated that engagement at the multilateral level. The world, if the world is conscious, then all the activities in the Security Council could be much more easier for Pakistan to really get the resolution passed along with the help of the world community. And more importantly, the recent development, once President Trump, he 9 times during his visit in Middle East, and once he went back, he mentioned that what way the mediation had taken place and what way he was able to, and his administration was able to help India to obtain a ceasefire in Pakistan. So from this point of view, if we see, even if India doesn't really accept that, and there is a reason that why don't they accept it? Perhaps quietly, I'm sure they just don't have any logic to refute the intervention and the mediation efforts of Trump, and that materialized also. But in the face of it, because that their foreign policy all depended post Simla agreement, that they would only have bilateral dialogues, and there won't be any third party, or for that matter, no multilateral pressure. And why they did that was there were about 17 Security Council resolutions on Kashmir alone, right? And then those resolutions are not really dumped. It is not taken up under Chapter 7 of the Security Council resolution, and there are reasons for it because India now in the recent past has been able to, excuse me, India has been able to sell its point of view and
Ambassador Saab,
exploit
you can take
United
your time.
States.
I can come back to you.
Yeah, clear your throat, sir.
I'll just come back to you. You can take your time. Please take a moment. Farooq, I'll come to you with reference to what we have seen in terms of multilateral engagement, and that what the ambassador was saying is a certain kind of leverage that we have. Post, of course, what has recently happened, is that really something that we can count on? You've, of course, described earlier in terms of the possibilities that exist, but is that going to make any sort of wave or ripple that Pakistan is putting forward this stance?
Right, Sana, I think that at this moment India keeps on using everything it has got, right? So with that, of course, it becomes very difficult for Pakistan to, communicate what it wants to do, and Pakistan merely wants peace. There are countries which can actually offer their good offices. For example, one country that we keep on hearing about is Saudi Arabia, and I think that India is keen enough to build relations with them, that it might also want to actually listen to whatever is said on the other side. But remember, when their deputy foreign minister was visiting Pakistan and had just left, they attacked the very airport whence he actually left. So we don't know what exactly is going on in Indian minds. All I can say is that Pakistan can effectively communicate with the world at this moment because India has been exposed. But remember that India's interest seems to be even bigger than Israel's when it comes to Western order. Why am I saying this? Look at Netanyahu's education. He is an MIT graduate, but you will still find pieces in Western papers rebuking him, right? You will not find any piece criticizing a student of, master degree holder from one of India's universities in entire political science, which seems to be a subject that only produced one degree in the entirety of India's history. So with that kind of a state of affairs, it has to be, one has to be very prudent in approaching the matters, but we are doing good right now.
All right. Ambassador Saab, you may finish your thought with reference to what you were saying in terms of Pakistan's engagements. And also please add to that, when we talk about the issue of terrorism, that angle is also very, very important. While, of course, the occupied valley and the bilateral tensions that exist are essential, how will that be something that the regional partners that we have and even the international partners can actually respond to, especially in terms of defense cooperations that already exist with a number of countries, including the US also, and the fact that these terror networks are sponsored by India, and we have been putting forward this with evidence. Is that a point that countries are going to willingly engage on with Pakistan and really see it for what it is and then take actions accordingly?
A very plausible and very logical point, as a matter of fact, because the world was part of the way they fought war against the Soviet Union in Afghanistan and the way they won the Cold War between Soviet Union and United States and its allies. So how it all started, how the fighters from 60 different countries were brought and then launched in Afghanistan. And the after effect of that later on, what happened was that people, those who knew nothing except fighting, then obviously they resorted to terrorism, split it into various groups, exploited by various interest groups in the pressure group, and more importantly, exploited by India itself. And no one less than Hillary Clinton, while she was testifying in front of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the United States, while she was Secretary of State, she described it And she just illustrated it very lucidly that how it happened and how they left Pakistan and just shake their head and hand and went back from this territory. In fact, I have served in other countries, and particularly I have seen the fighters in East Timor and how they were rehabilitated with the help of the world community. With the help of the world community, yes, Soviet Union was really dissolved, and but with the help of the international community, there should have been some rehabilitation. So that was the historical perspective. But now the fact of the matter is that India now is fully exploiting the situation, and they are paying for it. They are making agents. They are just orchestrating the terrorist acts. And you have a trophy here in this country, and that is Kulbhushan. And Kulbhushan has given a complete trail of what has been happening and what now we can connect that what is happening now. Major Sanjeev from across the border, he is directing Abdul Majid in Jhelum and has been directing him of various terrorist acts with digital proof, with forensic proof so we have already submitted about 151 pages dossier to the world. Now, though that dossier, I'm sure, is being updated, and it has been updated. And that dossier should be relied upon while we are engaging with the multilateral fora, while we are approaching these countries, including our friends, and our very strong friends like Azerbaijan, Turkey, and other countries. Yes, but at the same time, at the world platform, it's again very important because the world has a very short memory about various incidents and about various historical events, such as the Cold War and how it happened, and what way Pakistan suffered and suffered hugely, and how it has been recognized by other countries at that time. So those examples, unless it is again presented to the world opinion would not be changed. And now, since there is an involvement of RAW in it, the involvement of India in creating all these terrorist activities with the help of those agents, they pay very haftily and heavily, the proof of which has been already presented in that 151 pages of the dossier, as well as the recent proof of what I was mentioning, the handler from across the border from India, Major Sanjeev, and this side, the agent. And there are many, as they in the conversation it has been mentioned. So there's sufficient proof, but how it is presented to the world to form the opinion, which ultimately is translated into the General Assembly meetings, translated into the Security Council meetings, and the members of the Security Council become very important in that. And as I was mentioning the previous segment, that this time along, this President Trump and his involvement in the ceasefire, and then a counter allegation by India that President Trump has not had no role to play in it, definitely is a mockery of the very narration which India is trying to really project to the world. A president on the video 9 times says that I have done it, and he's being, told that you have not done that means you're telling lie. From that perspective, if now and then of course these two countries, what stage had they reached in this recent war of 4 days? And there are so many comments by the think tanks, by the analysts of the world, that where this could have led to the world and how dangerous it could have taken the India and Pakistan, this conflict. So this is the time, once subsequently, after doing our preparation, after doing our homework, and after doing this outreach program which we have designed, including the one which Prime Minister is doing now, and our other delegation, other missions, embassies, and of course, those embassies have to be empowered through our Attorney General office, through our, of course, Foreign Office, and through our Law Division, particularly Law Division supporting the NY, our PR, permanent representative of the United Nations, Pakistani permanent representative. So all these things, multi-layered and multilateral level approach has to be followed to convince the world, the entire world, about this tangible evidence what Pakistan has, so that
Absolutely.
now that one, next one, which
Absolutely. Thank
India
you.
is.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dr. Jamil, for joining us and for sharing your insight with us in the debate. Farooq, you wanted to add something? Because we're short on time, I'm going to pose a question for the second segment as well. What we, of course, see in Gaza is condemnable, and Pakistan is very, very clear about its stance. And we recently saw that, again, the UN was asked to immediately intervene. But so far in what we have seen, with, of course, calls for action existing, no real action taking place, will that change? And is you on the right platform to expect that too?
Right.
But you can add first about what you wanted to say
Right, Sana,
regarding
thank
India
you.
Pakistan.
Right, Sana, thank you very much for the question. I think that what is true for the previous topic, it is true for this one as well. One person, both these countries, India and America, India and Israel actually keep on underestimating is President Donald Trump. And why am I saying this? I have studied his works, his life for past 25, 30 years at least, and I can tell you very clearly that he is a counterpuncher, right? He is honey badger, so to speak. If you try to corner that person, may God have mercy on you, right? So at this moment, whatever they are trying to do, there's enough system to actually ensure that the American economy survives that, and I think that this is one of those rare moments where countries, other great powers like China and Russia will also will need to work with him, because they are certainly bad actors who are trying to pollute the system, right? On one side is India, which insists that Pakistan be treated like Gaza and that they be allowed to actually start their colonial settlement colonialism here and their genocide in Pakistan. Of course, the world is not ready to tolerate that. On the other side, there is Netanyahu, who is actually practically doing the same thing in Gaza, right? Killing people and all. At this moment, I think that you have to appreciate the White House's attempts to provide some kind of sustenance to people of Gaza, because they were so badly mauled, Sana. They have been so badly been deprived and impoverished that even the West, the countries that have actually seen themselves as allies of Israel, staunch as allies of Israel, even they have actually come out and said that stop this nonsense. I think that similarly, the Pope Leo XIV has also very clearly once again asked for peace in Gaza. I think that at this time, in the end, it is not Israel that is going to have the kind of trouble. It is going to be Netanyahu primarily, and I think that it is almost the end of his career. It seems that after this, he will have to escape to some other country and live there. Otherwise, things will become really hairy for him. So right now, with the state of affairs, and then there are fires in Tel Aviv and elsewhere. So with that kind of state of affairs, while brutality is at its peak, I think that the world is trying to do whatever it can to make life less unbearable for the people of Gaza. Let's hope that they prevail and this darkness ends, and this mentality of actually treating human beings as subhuman. Of course, there was a time when Nazis were doing that, right? And by the way, every time I mention Nazis, you know, one is told that some German friend actually winces at that time. Let me remind everybody that two countries have really vindicated themselves from the ghost of their past. One is the dead people of Germany, the other is Japan. So at this moment, when we talk about Nazis, it is only the concept and the darkness, not the people, right? Similarly, these people should have learned. India has been abused for 2000 years. Similarly, Israeli people, they should learn from mistakes of others and not repeat the same of treating humans as subhumans.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Farah, for joining us and being a part of the debate as always. That's all that we have time for. We'll now see you tomorrow.